In a world that speaks of dialogue, cooperation, and human rights, the language of power still relies on coercion and pressure. The term unilateral coercive measures refers to actions taken by a state, without authorization from the UN Security Council, to force another government to change its policies. These actions often include economic sanctions, financial restrictions, and the disruption of access to essential resources. While such measures are often justified as promoting democracy and human rights, their real impact falls directly on ordinary people, turning them into tools of widespread human rights violations. Among the nations most affected by such coercive measures, Cuba and Venezuela stand out. For more than 6 decades, Cuba has endured U.S. economic sanctions originally imposed to exert political pressure on Havana, but which have, in reality, targeted the Cuban people. These sanctions restrict the import of medicines, medical equipment, and even components necessary to maintain public health and energy infrastructure, violating the right to health as recognized under Article 12 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the crisis intensified. Hospitals lacked essential drugs. Patients died in conditions where life-saving medicines existed elsewhere, but could not reach Cuba because of financial and logistical barriers created by sanctions. Sanctions have also severely undermined Cuba's food security. Restrictions on agricultural production and imports have led to shortages that forced families to ration or skip meals. Article 11 of the same covenant recognizes everyone's right to an adequate standard of living, including food, clothing, and housing, yet these basic rights have been stripped from millions of Cubans. Although the United States portrays these sanctions as moral obligations, in practice it places national interests above human dignity. Venezuela, too, has faced an expanding wave of U.S. coercive measures for over a decade. Since 2005, more than 43 forms of sanctions have been imposed, many directly harming the civilian population. The freezing of Venezuelan state assets and restrictions on financial transactions have triggered a humanitarian crisis. According to the UN Special Rapporteur, these measures have obstructed the import of medicine, food, and medical equipment, severely undermining the rights to life, health, education, and housing. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the shortage of medical supplies pushed Venezuela's health system to the brink of collapse. The sanctions have not only crippled the economy, but have also triggered a mass exodus. More than 7 million Venezuelans have left their country in search of survival. Financial restrictions have also blocked humanitarian organizations and UN agencies from delivering aid, violating the principle of non-refoulement and effectively amounting to collective punishment. From the perspective of international law, sanctions imposed without Security Council authorization and without humanitarian assessment constitute clear violations of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Both instruments affirm the rights to health, food, water, and human dignity. When access to these essentials becomes a tool of political pressure, the very concept of human rights is undermined. The experiences of Cuba and Venezuela reveal that unilateral economic sanctions are not paths toward justice or freedom, but mechanisms that deepen suffering and weaken nations. What the world needs today is a renewed commitment to dialogue, respect for national sovereignty, and international cooperation guided by human rights principles. Because sanctions can never protect human dignity, they only bury it beneath poverty and silence.